Hi, I'm RJ Nestor, business and executive coach. Today I want to briefly talk you through my process for writing in Rome research and how I keep track of multiple drafts on the same page. So I use this for creative writing, whether that be novels or screenplays or whatever. It's really useful to kind of track chapter by chapter or scene by scene in this way. I also use it for generating blog posts or videos, any kind of content that has a significant writing component in it, like video scripts or what have you. This is how I work that system. So there's two different ways of controlling one draft to the next, and actually use both in my method here. The first way is by tagging these blocks separately. So I use my bomber method, which is brainstorm, organize, make, and refine. That's what I use with my coaching clients. And really, the only point behind that is that brainstorming means that there's no editing. You're just gathering, you're just getting everything out there, collecting everything together. And an organized draft is a draft where you are editing, you're ordering things, you're figuring out how the structure works, so that it's always content dictating form and not the other way around. That way you make sure that you're getting something that is organic and built the way it needs to be to carry across the message that you're trying to carry. So regardless, I tag them that way. You wouldn't have to do that. I tag them with pass number 1, pass number 2. That way I can filter to them if I want to. I can look at them individually. Of course, I can also focus on block to do that, and I'll show you how that works in a moment. But that's one way. So you have separate blocks dedicated to that, and then underneath, you would indent and write whatever you want to do underneath that. The other way of dealing with multiple drafts is through versions. And I use this for my, what I would call final drafts. So when I get to the point when I'm actually writing, I am controlling the versions with this. And what I mean by controlling versions, this is literally version control. If I'm clicked onto version 2 on this page, if I have any links or anything from anywhere else in the graph that are coming in here, and they're in version 1, they can't get there. Version 1 effectively doesn't exist in the rest of the graph if you have version 2 selected. So that's one way of being of making sure that your final draft, there's a canon version of it. There's just the one version in existence. So in short, I keep these as this kind of block because I always want to be able to go back and see what my journey was, what my brainstorming was, what the thought processes and the germination was that got me there. But I really only want one final canon version of the draft to exist at any one time. So the versions allow me to control that if I want to do it that way. So very briefly, let me show you how this would work and how I would do this. So I would do my brainstorming up here, and this page is how to write in Rome research. So okay, write down how to write in Rome research and figure out how to talk about it. We'll say that's our brainstorming pass. Very simple stuff. And so now if I were to then want to move this into my organized pass, I would open that one in the sidebar and focus on the block in this one. So those are two features that you really, really need to know and understand how to use in Rome, period. But it's really useful for this kind of thing. Because then what happens is I open this in the sidebar, I open this in the focus on block, and it's as though they might as well be separate pages. They exist independently. That allows you to keep all of these drafts on the same Rome page, which is great for being able to track it and reference it. It's all right there. But then when you work in them, it's nice and clear and clutter-free. So you don't have to worry about it feeling like you're just in one big pile of a page when you're working on it. Now, when I do this, and I'm not going to go into detail on this because I made a video the other day that was way too long in my opinion, but I would bring this over. I would actually take these block references that I did, and I would cycle them back so that now these over here, the quote-unquote originals in the brainstorm, are the ones that are the references, and these are the originals. And I simply do that, and you noticed I did it by swapping the original, and then I created text and alias over here. I did that because that lets me go here, and I can just click on that number, and I can go back through, and I can see what the journey was through. And I did text and alias over here because that means I can go over here and I can change this. I can delete research from that and it has no effect on this. If I had not changed it to text and alias over here, if I deleted that over here, it would change that over here. So the whole point of that is to make it so that these are connected, but they don't affect each other in terms of the actual text that's written in them. So that's how I would do that from here to here. Then, and this is where things get kind of interesting, when I go to my first written draft, I would open this in the sidebar. I'd make sure I'm clicked on one here, and I would focus on the block. Now, when you are focused on a block in a version, you actually cannot move to the other version. That's frozen. I've already made this so that I've turned it into a document. I right-click that bullet and say View as Document. So when I start writing here, all I have to do here is do that, and now I'm writing in there and doing all of that. So let's say I've finished draft 1. I'm kind of okay with it, but I know there are a lot of revisions I need to make. Now, when I go back to the main page here that this was on, here's draft 1 living there. Here's draft 2, the one I work in. I can open draft 1 in the sidebar and switch to draft 2 here. So this is the only time and the only way I know of that they can coexist. You can't mess around. You can't move it. Once you've opened it in sidebar or focused on it, you can't change it. But you can see it over here while you're working. Once again, this is still, in the View as Document here. And so I would write my second draft, and what I would actually do is I would copy, unless there were wholesale changes I wanted to make, complete changes I wanted to make, I'd copy and paste it and work from it in segments like this. We'll just change one thing here, blah, blah, blah. And you can see then that these are separate entities. This second draft then is now canon, if you will, while I'm clicked on it now. The first draft is the one that's there. And so just so you can see, if I were to tag, I don't know why that's the word that came to mind. If I would tag that word in the second draft of the second version, click on it, it'll show up in the tags here. If I go back here, go here to version 1, and go to the page humans, it will not show up in the references. That's what I'm talking about when I talk about version control. It only lives there, and it only shows up in the rest of the graph if you've done that. So, that was quick, but the things to remember here is when you're writing in Rome, when you're generating content, anything that's got a final version that's going to be written, the best way to go about that is to keep it on the same page. And I'm jumping out on a limb here. This is my way of doing it, and I think this is the right way. Keep it on the same page. It makes it way easier to get to that page, to reference that page. If you're bringing in content from elsewhere and you can just tag this page and it'll be down there in the linked references, that's really super useful to have it all in one place. And it also makes it useful because you can jump here and you can see your whole journey. You can see the whole process. And you don't have to worry about it getting cluttered because you can always filter, or you can simply focus on blocks, move blocks to the sidebar and do that as a way of working on it. So it feels just as smooth and clean as working on a separate page, but it all gets to live together here. So I use the tags for the passes that aren't going to be final version passes. That allows me to see the journey of my thinking. And then I use the versions to control the final draft, so there's only one canon version in existence. Now, if I were going to go from here, I could copy and paste this into Scrivener. If I were writing, a novel or something like that, I could copy and paste it into Final Draft. If I'm writing a screenplay or whatever is the thing that you want to use. Whatever the next step is, whatever the final delivery point is, you can copy and paste it out of here and do that. But while you're in Rome, while you're generating the ideas, the brainstorming allows you to gather everything in. You can reference stuff. You can bring it from all over the place. The organizing allows you to structure all of that, and you do that with the tags, and then the versions allow you to control those final drafts. I think it's a really neat workflow. It ties in well with my Bomber brainstorm, organize, make, refine method. I think that is really useful. If this is the sort of thing you like to get hold of to understand Rome's features, check out my course, Your Road to Rome. That's going to be releasing, I think, November 5th. I've been saying late October, early November. I think I'm pinning down November 5th as the release date there. But do go over to that page, check that out. You can sign up for an email reminder when it releases. I use exactly the same method, illuminating Rome features, providing a context for them so you understand how they work. And then the additional component is the course will also prompt you and coach you to recognize how to use these features in the context of your own life and work. So hopefully this is a neat little tip for you today. Hopefully that'll help you get working if you've been having trouble figuring out how to control drafts. This can help you with that process.